Hello, Tammy Davis here. Thanks for joining me. Earlier today, I found myself in a conversation on and around psoriasis, and it actually caused me to believe that it's time to do a video on that, or skin conditions. I realized the video that I did the other day, Here's Why Less is More, I talk about diseases and disorders as a conventional, as the way the identification of diseases and disorders is a very conventional methodology where it kind of keeps us within this box because we operate within a framework when we're treating such things. And of course, the whole idea is to relieve the symptom. But I don't say this in regards just to Western medicine. We actually do this in alternative care too, especially with our herbal treatments and our essential oil treatments. We're really looking to, again, quiet the symptoms. And hey, look, I totally get symptom relief. At the same time, we have to recognize the fact that such things as eczema or psoriasis or other skin issues are the result of chemical imbalances within the system, more than likely due to an overreactive immune system. Depending on what your genetics are dictating, it will determine what you end up manifesting. In the case of eczema and psoriasis, okay, so basically any skin condition is the result of, like I said, an overactive immune system. It's the process of histamine release. But there's other ones involved as well, such as acetylcholine. But if you haven't, if you're not familiar with me, I don't believe in regulating specific chemicals. I do believe in the symptom relief, again, because comfort is important, and at the same time, getting to the root of the issue. So psoriasis and eczema, truthfully, is not just a skin rash that needs to be quieted. It is actually a sign of something going on in the immune system. Typically, eczema is more along the lines of allergies, and psoriasis is just it's more involved with hormonal imbalance. But truthfully, the two they're not too separate from one another. Again, we have very distinct diseases and disorders that are classified based on the presenting symptoms, and it makes total sense how we have so many different categories of health conditions. And at the same time, when we get down to the bottom of it, it really is a stress response that is not being relieved, again, on the cell level. Therefore, your macronutrients aren't being broken down properly, and from there, you have any number of concerns, but the predominant one is going to be an immune reaction. That immune reaction, again, let me just say, how it shows up in your system is going to be dictated by your genetics. Now, the reason I'm talking about psoriasis and eczema today is this particular woman is not familiar with the fact that it is really considered an autoimmune disorder, and although it's truthfully acting as such. And one of the things that she asked me about was she was using a comfrey salve because comfrey is noted for its immune support and helping to heal the tissues. And while that sounds great, okay, so that would be, something that you could use in under milder conditions, but for something like psoriasis, it's not advisable. And here's why: an overactive immune system or autoimmune reaction, however you want to phrase it, it's a autoimmune. It's all overreact. It's a hyperactive immune system. And again, it's the result of macronutrients not being broken down. But the problem that we have, as I said, in our conventional model, regardless if you're practicing with herbs and oils or medications, we can't be piling all this remedies. We can't be piling all these remedies into treating, say, for instance, the rash on the skin, because what you're actually doing is you're stimulating the immune system. So let me just kind of shine a light on something else and reframe this another way. You have a hyperactive child. You've got a child who's just like having a great day and bouncing off the walls and you're trying to get them quiet, are you going to give them something that's going to stimulate them even further? Or are you going to try to find something that's going to calm them? And I don't mean suppress them, but just kind of help tone it down a bit, maybe redirect them into, to focusing their energy somewhere else. Because either way, you don't want to suppress and you don't want to stimulate. You want to help create balance. So to have an autoimmune reaction, and that's more of a chronic hyperactive immune system, okay? So you don't want to be adding immune stimulants, especially if you're taking immunosuppressants. Now, we are doing immunosuppressants in the medical world, and again, I can't fault anyone for this at all, because if you've got really severe symptoms, you want to be able to quiet them at the very least. You want to be able to find the relief. There is nothing wrong with that, but actually selecting things that are going to offer balance and not add fuel to the fire, if you will. In this particular woman's case, like I said, she was going to be placing comfrey salve on there, so she went out and got some because she was reading that comfrey salve would be really good for this. And I went, it's not. I would, if you're wanting to keep it moist, do oatmeal baths and at least put coconut oil on there. Something that is readily absorbable, which will keep it soft, but not over affect the immune system, because this woman is not taking any medications. She's going about this completely natural. And I said the same thing with regards to eczema. Eczema is the result of allergies. Some people, it could be environmental allergies. Other people, it could be food. Other people, it could be a combination of both. But let me just say, allergies are just, again, an overreactive immune system to various chemicals within plants. This is the reason, or any foods for that matter, or anything. It's just it's an immune response to the exposure to a particular chemical. Unfortunately, we've gone into classifying certain foods. Now, granted, we've identified gluten and casein. And so you have the gluten-free, casein-free diets. We also have diets that are low in oxalates. We also have others that are low in histamine. Although those aren't 100% accurate, because first of all, your body will produce oxalates, and that's the reason why eating foods high in oxalates becomes disruptive, because you're just putting a lot of oxalates into the system. You need to, again, find balance in the system to help dysregulate or reduce the amount of oxalates that are being produced in your body, so that eating foods with oxalates in them is the problem. As far as histamine goes, anything can cause a histamine reaction. Truthfully, anything can, because histamine is a product of the immune system. And so if you already have some level of hypersensitivity, and which is, may I just say, stressful to the system, you could be completely blissed out and having a really great day, and yet your cells could still be stressed. This is where I come in, really helping to relieve the cellular stress. So if you already have an immune reaction going on, even though you're not aware of it, maybe it's to proteins. In fact, that's what eczema really is the result of, besides allergies. And again, it could be any number of environmental or consumable triggers. There is also the fact that the body's not breaking down protein properly, which would result in the eczema. What's interesting to me is the stress response is what happens there with excess cortisol floating throughout the body. The body no longer breaks down glucose and proteins properly. And so you have a world of people who are, quote unquote, craving sugar, craving carbs, and or even, thirsting for protein, basically starving because they're not being nourished properly. And then unfortunately, those larger particles that are not being assimilated then get recognized by the body as something that's unusable. Therefore, it's time to eliminate. Now you have an immune reaction. So to identify low histamine foods is potentially helpful, and at the same time, anything can trigger that. So if you find relief, or when you find relief with certain foods, meaning that you don't have a histamine reaction, then stick with those foods, regardless of what any chart says. Don't eat something just because it's on a chart. Eat it because you feel good. That's my biggest advice for today, is if you're eating something and it makes you feel good, then stick with it. Don't choose things that are going to overstimulate the immune system. Get a hold on your digestion. Very important to get a hold on the digestion. I've mentioned in other videos, and I know some people have said that they haven't noticed a response, a great result by taking quercetin. Quercetin has a number of benefits. It does stabilize mast cells, which then will reduce the histamine response. If it's not doing that, if you think that it's not doing that, then histamine is not your challenge, because that's one of the ways quercetin works in the system. Magnesium kind of helps work along the same lines. So these are the reasons why I've made these suggestions before. It's because we're not trying to control the chemistry. Well, I should say we're not trying to stimulate the production of certain chemistry or block the production. We're trying to actually help stabilize the system so that it can begin to reduce the symptoms. So the other thing that had come to mind when I was talking about psoriasis this morning with this woman, because as I've mentioned, it's, the hormonal system and the immune system are like this. The neurochemistry and the immune system, it works hand in hand. I mean, the immune system relies on the neurochemistry for a number of reasons, and which includes your hormones. Now, there's a lot more to hormones than just insulin, melatonin, estrogen, testosterone, progesterone, androgens. I mean, we have more hormones that they're actually still working to identify. Some that actually help to regulate the immune system, others that actually help and activate the immune system, others that actually regulate iron levels, others that help to release fat from the cells. So for that matter, the growth stimulating hormone and the growth hormone itself. We have hormones for basically every function in the system. But in the case of psoriasis, it's a definite hormonal tie. And for a number of reasons, and which includes the growth hormone, because psoriasis, as I've come to find out, really is the rapid growth of skin. This is the reason why it seems to bubble up and then flake and then kind of, cycle around like that. And yes, it is possible to eliminate what appears to be the rash from the skin tissue, but it doesn't stay away. It comes back. And that's because you've stopped using whatever creams that you were using that got rid of it, and the system just kind of cycled back. So there's an example of not addressing the root of the issue. It's actually just addressing the immediate symptom. And in my humble professional opinion, any health condition basically is a symptom of the stress response and an overactive immune system. But again, when talking with this woman this morning, she was telling me some of the things that she was doing, which included trying to stabilize the hormonal system. And it occurred to me, because I've had several other clients that I know have what I would refer to, and I believe they even did as well, estrogen sensitivity. There's been other clients that I've worked with that have been living with estrogen dominance. And estrogen is in both men and women. And estrogen is actually used to activate a number of immune reactions. So high estrogen levels have been directly linked to autoimmune disorders. And interestingly enough, as I've spoken about in the past, high estrogen equals high histamine, and the two combined equal yeast, and then it could be any combination thereof. So meaning one can trigger the other one. And if you're going to have high yeast in your system, if you have, amplified yeast, you're more than likely not using your glucose, so the yeast is building. Your fermentation cycle is not functioning optimally, and so you're building yeast, which is now going to trigger an immune reaction, which is going to be histamine, which is now going to trigger estrogen to go and there you have it. It's a mess. That said, I do know that there's people that we can develop an estrogen sensitivity. And when I was talking with this woman this morning, and she was explaining to me that, and I do know that we're working to help stabilize her hormonal system, and this recent flare has been the worst she's ever had. And most people would become frightened by this and say that this is an effed up way of working with the body, and I just don't want to do this. I don't feel good. This is scary. And minus this is an effed up way of dealing with the body, that's, she did mention that she was scared. And understandably so. It is pretty serious when things start to flare and you feel like you're swelling. And fortunately, we were able to discuss it. I did explain to her that we needed to reduce the amount of things that she was using, and then when she told me about the comfrey salve, I told her no, told her to do the coconut oil. And then she mentioned the other stuff, which included maca root. And I explained to her, that this is helping to regulate the hormonal system, and this is part of the reason why she needed to back off, because the hormones are resetting themselves. I mean, everything is actually working, and she's currently in the middle of a healing crisis. What I found interesting was her reaction after that, or her response to me rather, was, so what you're telling me then is our body is going to tell us what it needs. We need to follow our body, because the body's telling us exactly what it needs. And I was in awe. I mean, yes, that's exactly what it is. It's a bitch when you don't feel good and everything starts to flare. And at no point do I ever agree with absolute discomfort. Now, there is that edge where you recognize there's a healing crisis and you do what you can to relieve that to the best of your ability, at the same time allowing the body to go through it. Because once you get through that hump, what's on the other side is miraculous. And that's what I wanted to say about all of this. And the same thing can be said for eczema. It's really about I was just talking with someone the other day. I mean, believe it or not, I had 3 cases of eczema show up on my desk in one day. And 2 of them are children under the age of 2. And one of them is a young man in his 30s who is terrified to eat at this point because he doesn't know what's going to cause his skin to flare up. And it started with just a couple of allergies, and it's gotten progressively worse. And as I was explaining to him, it is going to get progressively worse. And this is kind of what I was talking about earlier. That, it's okay. You can limit your foods and eliminate certain things as long as you feel comfortable, but that's not fully addressing the issue. That's only covering up a symptom. And while it's okay to eliminate something for a while, you want to be able to broaden your menu, if you will. And the way you do that is to help relieve the stress response. If you don't, it's going to get substantially more severe. And as I've told some of these mothers with the children with eczema, if we don't get a handle on these allergies now, it could potentially turn into psoriasis, because this one little girl is covered. And like I said, she will only be 2 next month. And she's had several doctors tell her mother that couldn't be possible. And I have learned firsthand with my own son that it is absolutely possible. And again, through my own work and study, it is absolutely possible based on the stress response. And this is, again, the reason why we have autism, I believe, and the reason why we have any health condition. It is the way the body is reacting to the environment in our best interest. It may not look like what you want, and who wants to feel like crap? But at the same time, if you can hold the mindset that this is in your best interest and that this is for your own good, and it's actually the body saying, hey, I could use your assistance so that we can, feel good and move forward in a better way, then that would be to your advantage. But again, eczema is the result of any number of allergies, and the more it is left unaddressed at the root, it's going to get progressively worse, because more and more things are going to have to be eliminated from the diet or from the environment in order to feel comfortable in your own skin. And I don't wish that on anyone. So let me know if you have any questions. Again, my name is Tammy Davis. You can reach me at tammy@synergessence.com, or visit my website, synergessence.com. Sign up for my newsletter. Let me know how I can assist you with any questions that you may have. I'm always writing. I'm always writing on my blog. I love posting on here when I think of it, when I get inspiration, and today was one of those days. I think I should probably, before I click off, I do want to say, when it comes to estrogen sensitivity and estrogen dominance, again, it's not about, truthfully, you would want to watch what you eat, because there's a number of foods that mimic, that have phytoestrogens in them. So beginning to, you're going to want, again, to pay attention to those foods. Flax is a big one. Obviously, we all know of soy. Those are the two big ones. There's other foods that have phytoestrogens in them. So you're going to want to at least, and this could even go for psoriasis, you're going to want to at least eliminate the phytoestrogens or reduce the amount of phytoestrogen foods that you're eating for the time being. In the meantime, get a handle on the stress response, as well as stabilizing the hormones with my suggestion would be adaptogens. Maca root is a good one. It's not a recommended one. I don't recommend it on a regular basis, especially on a regular basis past 30 days. Occasionally, from time to time, including it in your day and in your diet is a good idea. Rhodiola is another good one. Holy basil is a good one. Ashwagandha, another one. So these are all adaptogens. That herbs that you can take, again, depending on really what's going on with you, would determine which ones would be the better choices. There's another one that I can, with the exception of, I don't use maca and obviously in ashwagandha, but holy basil does come in an essential oil, as well as a couple of other ones that can be used as adaptogens on a systemic cellular level. So let me know how I can help you. And if I didn't completely say or address something in this video, by all means, let me know. I'm here to serve you, and I really appreciate you taking the time to join me. I'll talk with you later. Bye.